Hello everybody and welcome to Crazy Fluid Art and to this next video. So this is a cloud clock pour. I'm in Australia, so I don't get access to the amazing Bellagio pearl medium that Willie B Studios uses, but thankfully Mitchell Grimmer from Rain and Pours has come up with an amazing recipe. He's tried and tested quite a few ingredients here in Australia and has come up with a mix that does work. So this is obviously the finished product of what this video is creating. I'm just going to put up now the slides of the current recipe that Mitchell Grimmer has put together, and this is the recipe that I have used in this cloud pour mix. I'm still perfecting my technique and I'm still perfecting my layers, but the mix seems to work. I don't think I'm getting as fluffy, puffy clouds that Willie B gets, but I think that also could be coming down to my technique and making sure that my cloud mix isn't too heavy. And that's certainly something I'm going to be working on and playing with. And as I tend to get better in this experience, I will post more videos. So I've already put down a pillow on my board. This is a 60 centimeter round clock, so it's pretty big. It's the biggest cloud pour that I've attempted. So it's always good to have a pillow because you want your mix to be able to float over the surface. If you can't do your acrylic pouring onto a hard surface because you've got nowhere for your fluid to move, and that's the whole idea. You want it to be able to move and glide. So now we're getting on to pouring. I've already made up all my colors as per the recipe, and so you just want to layer. When you're layering, it's really important to pop your paints down the side of the cup, and then you just glide them over each other so they just sit on top of each other in the cup, but you're leaving a channel down the cup. I always have my colors laid out in the order that I am going to mix them in. So I will usually layer about 4 to start off with, 4 colors before I have my cloud mix. So this is my cloud mix using British paints, a British paints mix as per the recipe that I posted at the start. And then I usually do another 3 or 4 colors again. And again, I'm layering those colors down the middle of that cloud mix on the side of the inside of the cup. So we do 3 or 4 again, and then I'll do another cloud mix. I do feel for this particular design, I didn't have enough, when I layered, I didn't layer enough cloud mix. So I wish that I had gone back and put more cloud mix in with this particular creation, because I think the clouds that I got with the final product were beautiful, but they just weren't extensive. And it was like a channel, which you'll see during the pouring process, that that's the one thing I'm still struggling with, is the pouring. I tend to not keep my arm straight and in the one spot, and I'm struggling to get my cloud sitting in the middle. So that's something I'm also going to have to practice and play with. And then after the second cloud mix, the last few colors that I tend to put in, sometimes you can do a third cloud mix. Just remembering the last few colors that you put in after your final cloud mix, they will tend to move to the edges, and they'll be the edges of your design, and sometimes you'll lose some of those off the sides. So just as a heads up, I'm just putting some extra paint in the middle there. Don't know why, just so I don't waste it. And now we come to the pouring process. Now this I've sped up. This is a very slow process. So as you can see at the start here, this is slow. This is not sped up. This is the slow. You can hardly tell that the paint is pouring out and that the paint's moving in the cup. But I'll speed it up in a couple of seconds and you'll see the time difference. Now, when I was pouring this one out, this took about, I think, 8 to 10 minutes. I did have one pour that I did that took 15 minutes. Very slow, because you don't want your paints all falling out at once. You want to keep them in that nice orderly fashion so that your cloud sits within your layers, and not gets mixed in or spread out too much. So it is a very slow process. So here we go. So nice and slow. We're going to slowly start to speed up now. And as I said, this took me about 8 to 10 minutes to initially pour, and I think when we've sped it up, we've made it into, I think, maybe 3 or 4 minutes. So we're just going to slowly pouring over a period of time, letting the colours layer, letting the colours mix, or stay as separated as much as we can. So you can now see that darker blue layer now moving. This is where I'm speeding up. So now you can see how fast it's going to go. And you can see the paint shifting. So at the moment, the whole idea is to keep your cup as close to your surface as possible and layer very slowly. So your arm does get tired. So just to have that as a warning, might need to, I'm thinking I'm going to have to build up my arm strength when I do future cloud pours, especially if I'm doing them this big, because you do feel like your arm does get stiff, it does get sore. But you can start to see some of the color separation here. You, unfortunately right now, because of the angle of the cup, you can't see the cloud mix that's just poured out. But a little bit later, you'll actually see this trail of white, which will be my cloud. And it doesn't look like much until I've stretched it out. So don't get disheartened after you've done your pour like this, that you don't see much. Just wait. Cloud pours tend to take a little bit of time to puff up. Oh, excuse me. So I'm back now in normal speed, just going nice and slowly for my last little bit. I'm using my other hand to support because I was getting very tired at this stage. The other thing that's really important when you're doing your cloud mix is when you get to the end, you've got to make sure you tilt your cup, or you put a piece of paper or your finger underneath, because what I've had done in the past is I've got this beautiful design and then I've tilted my cup up and dragged it across the paint, and I've left a line right across the middle. So you can see here, right through the middle where the lights almost is, there's this tiny little bit of white. It does not look like much now, but I'm going to stretch. I'm not spinning, I'm stretching this canvas. So when I stretch it, that white that runs down the center will become my puffy white clouds. So I'm just, again, not to waste too much paint. So I'm scraping out the leftover mix and putting it on the side. Don't know why, really. It's going to get thrown, like washed off. But now we're going to tilt, and I am going to tilt in fast speed, because the tilting process again took me about another 5 or so minutes just to get the paint where I wanted. So we're just going to use the blowtorch now to pop any air bubbles and to help the cloud pop a little bit. So again, as I said, it's only a really thin white line down that middle there. So you can see that little thin white line. But as we stretch, you're going to see this puff, and these clouds stretch out and start to really puff up. And then over the next coming hours and into the next day, those clouds will also develop. So as you'll see, as I'm stretching out, I'm just getting the paint over the edges of my board or my clock, because this is going to be a clock. And then I'll just play around with the design until I'm happy with where the cloud and the rest of the mix is actually sitting. But you can see now the difference in stretching that paint out and how those clouds are now starting to puff a bit more. So we're just taking it all over to the edges, making sure we've got a nice coverage of my sides, because I like to have my sides covered. And then this is where you get to manipulate your design a little bit more. I do wish now that I'd stretched a little bit more, but I really wished when I got to the finished design after it dried, there are some points on there that I'm like, oh, I could have stretched it and moved that over, like that top part in the top corner up there. I wish I got rid of that. But in the end, this is a testing product. This is something that we're very new at developed, that Mitch only developed about 6 months ago, and it's only something that I've recently started playing with. So there's going to be a lot of trial error. There's going to be a lot of playing around until I get my technique right. But I really hope this has given you a very quick and short introduction with the mix on how we can do some cloud pours here in Australia. I hope that you've liked this video, as short as it might be. Please ask any questions, give me any comments, give me any feedback, like, subscribe, all the usuals, because I really love to be able to help people develop this. As you can see, this is the final product. It's got really nice fluffy clouds, and in the next photo I am going to show you how it's going to look as my clock, with my clock hands on it. So again, Thanks for watching. It's very quick, very short, because watching a cloud video can be very tiresome. Stay tuned until the next video. Stay happy, stay safe, and happy creating.